focus is truth and reconciliation. This is the second year that Canadians are marking September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. As one of the action items from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, the day honors the children who never returned home and survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. Public commemoration of the tragic and painful history and ongoing impacts of residential schools is a vital component of the reconciliation process. We will take a closer look at what we can do to show our support and advance our own reconciliation journey here in Penticton. Today on PenTALKton. Hello, Penticton, and welcome to PenTALKton, a podcast from the city of Penticton discussing some important topics in our community. My name is Dale Corey, a longtime resident, a serious V's hockey and speedway racing fan, and your host. I get involved. I know many of you do as well. We do it to help shape our city. This episode will explore a very important day, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We have two guests with us. Cheryl Hardisty is the Council and Executive Operations Manager with the city and is here to talk about the city's role in supporting the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And Chandra Wong is the Museum Educator at the Penticton Museum and Archives. She has recently introduced 12 actions that we as residents of Penticton can do to improve our knowledge and advance our own reconciliation journey. Cheryl, Chandra, to both of you, welcome to PenTALKton.
Hi, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
So, Cheryl, why is it important for the city of Penticton to play an active role in the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation?
Thanks, Dale. I think as you said already, this is the second year that we're recognizing the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And I really think that what we're learning, I think we've done a lot of learning in the past 2 years since the discovery in Kamloops. And I think a big part of what we've learned is that everyone has a role in truth and reconciliation. Mm-hmm. Each of us individually and personally, but all of us together as a community, learning together about the history and what a path forward looks like. And I think that's we're all still learning. I don't think anybody knows what that is yet, but we're on this learning journey together. So I think it's important for the city to be involved because we want to make sure that we're not solely relying on First Nations to teach us. We need to take a proactive role in learning and sometimes unlearning as it is. So I think it's critical for the city to be involved. Absolutely.
Yeah. Chandra, same question to you. Why is it important for the Penticton Museum and Archives to play a leading role in honoring this day and honoring Indigenous people?
Well, I mean, we are talking about history here. So the museum fits in really well. And then when you look at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to actions, museums and archives are actually specifically mentioned. So, and we need to look at the history of Indigenous people in Canada and the impact that European settlement has had on them. And I figured that was a good place to start.
Yeah. So, Chandra, you've prepared a list of 12 actions that Penticton residents can do to advance their own reconciliation journey. What inspired you to do this work, and how did you come up with the list?
Well, I mean, I'm an educator at the museum, and I was thinking about what am I going to do? What can I do personally? And I kind of brought those two together because there are a lot of resources that I use when I do my programs that talk about how Indigenous people and settlers interacted. And I thought, you know what, I bet you people don't know about these things. So I went and I basically went through a lot of the resources that I use that are online, that are publicly available. And I said, here, if you want to know more, then check out this place or check out this website. Mm-hmm. Or and a lot of it too was really important that we get to know our neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I've noticed about the list is you have tried to provide actions that we can do to become more familiar with the territory in which we live. So why don't you tell us about the actions that we can take and why you felt they were important? Maybe let's talk about that list a little more.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, again, I'm going to say, like, we need to get to know our neighbors. And one of the best ways to do it is to actually find out about what's important to them. And, do you know the territory, the traditional territory in which we live? And so that was one of the first things that are on the list. And like, there's 12 of them, and I'm just going to go over them quickly. But, if there's any comments or questions, you can certainly ask me about them. And I think it's really important to be able to speak a few words of Penticton, which is the language that's spoken by the Syilx people. And I mean, and that was the next point on the list, was learn 5 words of Penticton. And there are actually 2 schools here in the Okanagan, one based in Penticton and one based in West Kelowna, and you can go to the website of one of them and learn 5 words of Penticton. Yeah, okay. Then also, for me, I didn't want to glance over, the really serious topics. And for me, being a woman, it was really important that we think about what it might be to lose your mother or your wife or your daughter or your auntie. And so I wanted to encourage people to visit the website on the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. And I mean, that's a pretty serious topic, and it's heartfelt. And I think we need to think about what it would be like. Yeah. Another one that I wanted to highlight was the Aboriginal Peoples Television Network and Quest Out West, Wild Food. And because it features our Syilx storyteller, Tracy Kim Bonneau, and she's talking about searching for healthy foods that are inspired by her traditional roots and her ancestors. And then last year, what I learned was that there's actually a Syilx Indian residential school monument here in Penticton on the Penticton Indian Band Reserve. And I thought, maybe there's people out there who don't know about that. So you can find out more about it. And that's, we're going to talk a little bit about that later too, I think. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, maybe we could go nationally. And there's radio stations on CBC that focus on Indigenous people, on Aboriginal people. And so highlighting, Unreserved is one of them. And then Reclaimed is another one. And so you can just go to the website for CBC and find those website or web pages and then listen to some radio and hear some good music, but also hear a different point of view.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We're at number 7 now. And I was gonna look this up before I started doing this, but I didn't, because there's a museum in West Bank that is I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and I apologize. It's Sn'pinktn Heritage Museum, and they have a museum collection. They have histories and oral stories of the Syilx people, and so it's on my list to get there. The problem is that their hours match my hours, so it's hard for me to get away from work to go see another museum. But maybe one day I'll make a field trip there.
Yeah. Yeah. I know one of the items that you've got is read an Indigenous author, and it's something we're going to talk about a little bit later because you've got a special event coming up at the Museum and Archives as well. But why is that important?
It gives you a whole different perspective on what life might be like for another person. Like, I mean, part of it is walking in another's shoes, and if you don't know that person, then you need to find out about them. And there's so much literature out there that is either fiction or nonfiction that can give you a point of view. And the library, the Penticton Library, has done a really good job. They've shortlisted all their Indigenous authors, so you can just go in and you could actually just go to their website, click on Indigenous authors, and then you've got a whole list to choose from. And I'm reading one right now, and I'm just finding life is different than what I had growing up for some people. So, it gives you another perspective. And I think that's what this is all about, right? It's about listening, whether you're reading it or you're hearing somebody else's story, and then it helps you understand what it might be like.
I think something that I've learned in my personal reading and things that I've read is it has helped me get comfortable in hard conversations. There's Truth and Reconciliation and the history of Canada and Indigenous people's experience in Canada is a hard one. And as settler people, it can be, when you're encountered with those hard truths, sometimes we back away and we don't want to engage. And I know for me, I've developed a level of comfortability through listening to Indigenous writers and the CBC podcasts, and just having that exposure has made me more comfortable in that space. Also the learning, of course, those pieces, but just generally being comfortable and open to having those conversations is so important.
Yeah. You know, I spent a year working in communications in the communications department at Seabird Island Band in the Agassiz Harrison Hot Springs area. And, you know, I learned about respect. I learned about family. I learned just how many generations are affected due to the residential school system. And I think the important thing is we just all need to understand these issues that much more to be able to, as you mentioned, Cheryl, delve into them and look at some of the hard topics, but have that sense of understanding and knowledge of what's taken place and what we can do in the future as well.
And I think when you start to hear about some of the chaptik, which are the stories, the teaching stories, it gives you a perspective on how the Okanagan Syilx people view the place that we live in and the place that we call Penticton. Because, in particular, I'm thinking about how food was given. We have the 4 food chiefs, which is another one of the points on my list of things to do, is to learn who are the 4 food chiefs and why are those 4 food chiefs important. And, I mean, I can tell you there's the bear, there's salmon, there's... I want to say Sia, which is the Okanagan word for Saskatoon, and then Sn'pinktn, which is the bitterroot. And they all have a role to play in sort of the world perception of for the Okanagan people. And I mean, I'm a biologist by training, and I see the world through the ecological kind of point of view. And so I think it's really important to hear different points of view of what world existence can be.
Yeah. What's been the reaction so far as we progress towards September 30th and National Day of Truth and Reconciliation? You've been posting these various 12 items. What have you heard from people? What reaction have you had?
Actually, there's been some really good feedback on Facebook. That's where they're being posted through our museum page, and people are glad that we're posting these. And then one of my volunteers in the museum came in. She said, "I see you've got these posts here. Are we going to have something on print?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea, Marianne. Thank you for reminding me." And so I have them. We have them available at the museum as well, and I put them out in the hallway. And what I'm just kind of counting, and they keep getting taken. So people are interested, and I think people want to know what they can do. It's just sometimes it seems a little daunting, but then I thought, here's some things that we can actually do, and it's easy to do.
Okay. These pieces are so good. I when I was going through them, they're real. The Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. You said the word daunting. They can feel really daunting to people, and you don't know where to start. And what can I do? I'm just one person. What can I do? And this is an amazing list of a dozen things that are real, that are tactical. You can go out and do these things with ease. They're accessible to everybody. That's why I love this list so much, because they're very real, and I think impactful.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Great. That's exactly what I wanted them to be, right?
Yeah. So. What about the rest of the list? Are there any more items that we haven't touched on so far as we get closer to Friday, September 30th?
Yeah. One of them is hear the perspective on the news from an Indigenous point of view. And so there's two places that I suggested. One was Indigenews, which is a print and web-based news outlet. And then there's also the Aboriginal People's Television Network National News. So, but I mean, I tried to make it accessible because I started out online. So there's all these links that you can follow to get there. And so the other one was to listen and learn the Okanagan song. And I'm not sure if people knew that there was an Okanagan song, and it was developed by Delphine Derrickson and Herman Edward with input from other members of the Okanagan Nation. And it's a beautiful song to listen to. And I guess what brought it to mind was that my kids learn it in school. And so they would come home after learning it and they would be singing it. And I'm thinking, you know, here are two kids that are not Indigenous, but they are singing a song that has roots that go back, you know, thousands of years. And, you know, in a language that goes back thousands of years. Yeah. And I thought that, you know, how much better can it get there?
And I've heard that song sung numerous times at Chamber Business Excellence Awards and other events throughout the city over the years, and it's just a wonderful song, and it really kind of goes right through your body in a lot of ways, I guess, just the vocals of it and the pitch of it and everything else. So.
Well, and then the drum beat, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the drum beat is the heartbeat. So, and that's where it should be hitting anyways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. And we should tell everybody that these 12 points are on the Penticton Museum and Archives Facebook page.
That's right.
So you can go there, refer to them. Each day there's been one posted over the last couple of weeks. So we want you to go through and follow those a little bit closer.
Yeah. If you're not on Facebook, you can come to the museum and get a print copy of it.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Chandra, you've really provided us with some great suggestions for things that we can do in our own time. But of course, there are also some events planned for September 30th for residents who want to recognize the day with their own community. Cheryl, we'll bring you back in now. Can you maybe highlight the events taking place in Penticton?
Absolutely, Dale. You bet. So this year there are 2 opportunities for Penticton to come out and mark this day. The first is a walk for the children being organized by the Okanagan Nation Alliance. This is a 5-kilometer walk starting at the Peach and making its way down the Channel Pathway over to the Syilx Indian Residential School Monument that Chandra mentioned earlier. This monument is dedicated to all the Syilx people who went to Indian Residential School, and especially to those who did not make it home. So that starts at 10 o'clock at the Peach. There is also a second celebration of Indigenous culture and resiliency that's hosted by the Four Seasons Cultural Society. That'll be in Gyro Park from 1 till 6, and you'll see some dancing and drumming and singing, arts and crafts. There will be speakers. There'll also be an opportunity for you to dance as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be a great afternoon, and it's really just geared towards an opportunity again for that exposure and to raise the voices and
Yeah. Who can attend these events?
Everyone, and I hope everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
Both events. I think with the walk being at 10 o'clock and then the event in Gyro starting at 1, we're hopeful that there's something for everyone. If you're not able to walk, come down to Gyro. If you want to do both, that's great. Bring your orange shirt, bring a chair and a picnic, and we can't wait to see you.
Yeah. So I know the City of Penticton is trying to take a more active role in learning opportunities for citizens with respect to truth and reconciliation. So, Cheryl, why is this important?
I think it's so important, Dale. I think, and we talked about this being the second year of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and I think it's important for everyone to remember that it is not the sole responsibility of First Nations to teach settler communities about the history, about what happened. We need to take on some of that responsibility. So this is a new way that we're trying. Certainly there will be learnings from what we're doing this year. We might do something different next year. But that's what this is all about, is learning.
Okay. And how will the city achieve this goal as we kind of look maybe to the future a little bit more? What do you have in mind? What is the city looking at to achieve this goal?
So honestly, right now, I don't know. I don't know what those milestones are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what those benchmarks are. I don't know. What I do know is that the city is committed to learning, to listening, to having those hard conversations we talked about. That's what I know. I don't presume to know what the future looks like. I definitely know that we are here for the conversation, though.
Yeah, this really is a great opportunity for many of us to honor the survivors of residential schools and honor those who have suffered so much trauma and loss of life, isn't it? It's such an important opportunity for all of us to take part in this.
Yeah, I think I hope it is. I hope it is, Dale. I hope it's just an opportunity for citizens to come out. We want survivors. Certainly, in Penticton locally, there are survivors that went to residential school. We want them to know that they are seen and they are heard, and we're learning.
Yeah. Okay. I know this is one day out of the year where every Canadian is asked to reflect, to learn, to honor, to understand. What can citizens do throughout the year to continue this?
What can citizens do throughout the year to continue this? I think Chandra's got a great list. And if you started on each of those, I mean, it could easily take you a year to make your way through some of those things. There are so many good books. There are so many blogs. There are so many podcasts. But get out and build new relationships, make new friends, try something new. All of those things.
Yeah. National Day for Truth and Reconciliation takes place Friday, September 30th. Penticton residents, again, have two opportunities to recognize the day. The first is a 5-kilometer walk for the children hosted by the Okanagan Nation Alliance. That begins at 10. The second opportunity, as you've heard, is a celebration of Indigenous culture and resiliency in Gyro Park. That is hosted by the Four Seasons Cultural Society. The event runs from 1 until 6. Chandra, the Museum and Archives is also hosting a special event. It's coming up Thursday, September 29th from 6 to 8. It's called Okanagan Women's Voices, Indigenous Settler Writing and Relations. So please tell us more about this night and how people can get involved.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because it is specifically to recognize the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And it's a panel discussion. And it's in recognition of the publication of the book that you mentioned, The Okanagan Women's Voices, Indigenous Settler Writing and Relations from the 1870s to the 1960s. And it's a collaboration between the University of British Columbia, Okanagan, and Thetis Books, with cooperation from the Naukin Center and the museum. And we're going to have the three editors who were instrumental in putting this book together, Jeanette Armstrong, Lally Grauer, and Janet MacArthur. And so they're going to sit at the panel and talk about their book and what brought them together and what they hope to achieve with this. Mm-hmm. Just in case people are not aware, Jeanette Armstrong is a Syilx Okanagan, and she is a fluent speaker and teacher of the Insilchan Okanagan language and traditional knowledge keeper of the Okanagan Nation. Lally Grauer has been long involved in Canadian and Indigenous literature in Canada, and she is also at UBCO. And then we have Janet MacArthur, and she is an associate professor emeritus in the Faculty of Creative and Critical Studies at UBCO. And she created and taught the first courses at UBC on women's literature, autobiography, and trauma studies in the humanities. So I think it's going to be really in-depth, and it's going to be really interesting to hear. They each take on different authors from the past, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and talk about what their perspective on the world was through their writings. And so you can come down on September 29th. It's from 6 to 8, and we'll be in the auditorium at the museum. So it's 785 Main Street, and then you'll have to walk past the museum to the auditorium, and we're going to have it start at 6. The panel goes from 6:30 till 7:30, and then we have time to chat afterwards and wrap up at 8.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
Yeah.
great. Sounds
Yeah.
like a really informative session that we hope people can take part in.
Well, we're really honored that we could offer space for this to take place and that
Mm-hmm.
we're involved in it. So I'd say we're very honored to take part.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for putting all of that together.
Mm-hmm.
Again, our guest today from the City of Penticton, Cheryl Hardisty, the Council and Executive Operations Manager with the City of Penticton, and Chandra Wong, the Museum Educator at the Penticton Museum and Archives. To both of you, thanks for the insight into the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation.
Thank you, Dale.
Yeah, thank you, Dale.
Again, Friday is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We will see you at Gyro Park. Let's all work toward a community which looks after its own, welcomes others with open arms, and continues to provide us with the best place on earth to live. And of course, please join us next time on PenTALKton. I'm Dale Corey. Thanks for listening, everyone.